are quarterback dominoes about to start falling for Oregon in the 2024 class? I think when we're looking at that question, let's start off with one big-time target. Michael Van Buren is a big-time target for Oregon here at quarterback in the 2024 recruiting class. He plays at St. Francis Academy in Baltimore, Maryland. Looking at his rankings and everything, 247 Sports Composite, you guys know that's what I like to use. He's rated a 4-star prospect, 0.9412, ranked the number 128th player in the country, the number 11 quarterback, and the number 3 prospect in the state of Maryland. What's the big news with Michael Van Buren? Well, he's been on Oregon's radar for a long time, even before Dan Lanning got hired. He was recruited by Kenny Dillingham when he was still on staff at Oregon, but Michael Van Buren has set a commitment date of July 8th. So still quite a bit of time, still left in this recruitment for Oregon to, get more involved and hopefully improve their standing with the Baltimore passer. But so it looks like Oregon is still in the picture with Van Buren. He didn't release that news with a top group of schools, but Brian Doan of 24/7 Sports has done a pretty good job reporting on this one, and he did report that there's a pretty good feel for what schools are involved here with Van Buren, talking about Maryland, Oregon, Penn State, and Oklahoma being in the race because he either made spring visits there or he's set to visit those schools in the future. As far as his next trip, Van Buren did announce that he's going to be making it out to Eugene this weekend for a visit, and that's going to be a big trip for the Ducks. They got Van Buren on campus in January. For all intents and purposes, looks like that visit went pretty well. But you get him back on campus after a couple of months, and now that he has a commitment date, you can kind of work with that. However, it does look like, from that group of schools that we mentioned, Maryland, obviously the in-state program, Mike Loxley has a good connection there. They have geography on their side, but quarterbacks don't usually care too much about distance. But Maryland's a school, I think that is worth watching and obviously worth a mention in this update. And then you also have Oklahoma, which just landed a quarterback. I think it was Michael Hawkins. I want to say it was his name, from the state of Texas last week. So they already have a quarterback in 2024. You probably figure that takes them out of the race here for Van Buren unless they want to take 2 quarterbacks. But as is the case with quarterbacks, you kind of have to ask yourself, is this a guy who is comfortable, playing in, or being part of a class with 2 quarterbacks? That's not cool with everybody. Everyone has a different situation. But the big update, aside from him coming out to Oregon this weekend, is that he's received a pair of crystal ball predictions to Penn State over on 24/7 Sports. Brian Doan, who I just talked about, and then Steve Wiltfong, the 247 Sports Director of Recruiting, also logged a prediction for Michael Van Buren to end up at Penn State. And honestly, this doesn't come as a huge surprise. He's been out to Penn State a number of times, and I was under the impression even before these predictions came in that Penn State was in a great spot to land Michael Van Buren. I feel like Penn State, not entirely dissimilar to Oregon State as far as they're kind of that school that I feel like has been one quarterback away. And I'm sure that that's probably part of their pitch to Van Buren in this recruitment. But that's kind of where, other industry experts kind of see this recruitment going right now. Oregon has done a pretty good job of recruiting the DMV area, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, that area. They did land Colin Gill, the cornerback out of St. John's College High School, in the 2023 recruiting class. They also have Damon David from the 2021 class. He's out of the Baltimore area. They did get Dante Thornton in 2021, but he's on his way now at Tennessee. So you have some Baltimore connections on the roster there, but certainly not an area that Oregon has really done a good job in. Not a hot spot or a pipeline by any means. You also remember that they went for Nicholas Harbor out of the DC area in 2023. Weren't able to get him. He ended up at South Carolina. And then you're also going after Dylan Stewart, one of the top edge rushers in the country in 2024. I think he's supposed to visit for the Oregon spring game, and he's also out of the DC area. So this is an area that Dan Lanning, at least his staff, looks very intent on prioritizing here, both in the 2023 class, 2024 class, and beyond. So Van Buren's visit to Oregon this weekend is absolutely an important one, because you want to give yourself a good shot. And it really feels like Van Buren is one of these guys that Oregon is really prioritizing in the 2024 class. This is a pretty top-heavy class as far as the quarterback position goes, and Van Buren has been tabbed as one of those guys. He's not the biggest quarterback you'll find. He's 5'11", 185 pounds, but he's one of the best signal callers in the country, and he's definitely a guy who can improvise, can make all the throws, has a really, really strong arm from what I've been able to see on tape. Hopefully I can see him in person someday, but looks like a really special talent at quarterback. And those are basically the updates that I have right now. I haven't been able to interview him. Hopefully I can get him on the phone for an update and kind of see where things stand there. But either way, it's a positive update that the Ducks are able to get Van Buren back on campus this weekend, and that they have a commitment date to kind of work towards and work around. Because this is a summer commitment date. Maybe they'll be able to get him on campus for an official. I believe he has only set one official visit to Penn State, and I believe the reports are that he's going to be there in mid-June. So that's a guy to watch for, and it would also support the predictions that we talked about earlier this show with Van Buren going to Penn State, that he already has that official set up right now. So that's kind of the latest that we have right now on Michael Van Buren. He'll head to Eugene this weekend for an important visit with the Ducks.